Welcome to the next episode, and in this series I want to show you books where you can color with watercolor paints. Actually, in many books you can use watercolor, so paper holds water, and you can use neocolors, you can use watercolor paints, and with moderate amount of water there won't be problems with bleeding through. You can use watercolor in all Hannah Carson book, in Maria Trolle books, in many other books which I already shown you, like this one. But we will start from the books which are printed on real watercolor paper. Here we have 3 books by Jade Guidon. There is also a fourth one, Rainforest Escape, but I don't have it. I have only 3 of her books. So they are one-sided mostly, apart from the double page like fold outs, and they are printed on a very thick paper. You can see here from the thickness of the paper that book is huge. But as a colorist I don't use them frequently because I am totally intimidated to color here. Well, for the smaller designs I can use watercolor and I can be relatively happy with my results, but with beautiful fold-outs where we have more complicated landscapes, I'm totally lost how to do the decent result. And that's why probably I postponed to color in them until I will be more confident in my watercolor skills. After a couple of totally ruined attempts, for example here on Island Escape, I tried to do just one landscape. I totally hated the look of it. I realized that I need probably some basic knowledge how to do proper balance of colors on the foreground, on the central part of the page, on the skies, on the landscape, and I totally lacked such knowledge. And you can see that everything is very plain, very boring, and without any air perspective. So it really very discouraged me. I usually very rarely is discouraged by fails in my coloring, but with watercolor, well, I struggle a lot. In some of the books I can use them, especially when I work then with pencils, but sometimes when I try to do the whole completed coloring with watercolors, it's still a huge struggle and a lot of attempts were ruined. In Thailand Escape, which I absolutely love because I hadn't visited Thailand yet and it's another one of my dreams. Again, every time when I think that maybe this year I will manage to visit it, maybe as for the holidays, maybe for the business trip, something happens and I never was lucky enough to visit this beautiful country. But in this book I managed to do some more or less decent works. Here I tried to show evening atmosphere, maybe dusk, so that's why I selected such color for the background, for the sky. And you can see here the biggest difference between real watercolor painting and coloring. When I applied background color, I colored around all those leaves and it didn't look very accurate, so I still missed some parts. Maybe I need to do masking with masking fluid here on the leaves, then to cover the whole area with one wash of watercolor, then to delete masking fluid and to work on the leaves. But when I did this page, and even now I don't have masking fluid, I still need to purchase it, and maybe it will help me to do more accurate colorings. But still, this page, it has some nice areas. I decided to do leaves not in very bright greens, but at least I tried to use several shades of it. Here we have more brownish olive green, here like more traditional normal greens. I tried also to add some shading to the leaves which are slightly behind to the leaves which are in front, but most of all I am proud of the buildings. I imagined that maybe somewhere here there is sun going down behind the horizon line, so that's why my buildings they are highlighted on the one side with the last rays of the sunlight, a little bit of yellow color here along the left side. Then for the building I blended a little bit of Payne's gray, added touch of blue, touch of violet to be able to have some color accents here on this very detailed architecture on the carved surface of the stone. And I think that at least buildings here, they look not bad. You can see that in this book we have a lot of very interesting double spreads, fold-outs. And of course I would like to color them, but I still don't have enough courage. Here I do love how I did Buddha statue, but the leaves, again, probably leaves are my biggest problem in all the colorings here, because they always look flat. I never have enough strength in me to add normal dark shadows. I am always afraid for my leaves to be messy if I would add dark colors, and I am always confused which color to use together with green color, maybe dark indigo, to do nice shadows. With pencils, now I don't have such problems. I do shading on the leaves quite easily, sometimes with brown, sometimes with dark indigo, sometimes with black even, but here probably it's not enough shadows, but at least I tried to add on the leaves on the upper layer lighter colors and even a little bit of more of either yellowish green, again trying to show that leaves on the upper layer and Buddha statue, they are highlighted by the sun. The next one had a very good beginning. I read about this bird, which is like mascot bird for the Thailand. Very interesting, and the bird is beautiful, very colorful. I really wanted to work well on its feathers. For the background, this ornament reminded me about carved wood ornaments, so that's why I decided to use this ochre color diluted with water. I was actually happy how everything worked until I realized that if my bird is standing probably in front of the wall, then I need to do shadow behind, and it wasn't a very clever idea because we don't have ground here, we simply have pattern behind. I had to leave it as it was, but then I decided to add blue-gray shadow. I think that I blended a little bit of blue color into gray watercolor and I did almost invisible shadow behind, but it was enough to create impression like it's simply a dirty spot, like my watercolor flow outside the lines, and it doesn't look like shadow, it looks like a dirty area behind. Still, it was interesting to do. Another fun page was this one. I somehow decided that if I am so bad at coloring leaves, maybe I need to do some fantasy style leaves, so I started this page from a very quick blue background, then I concentrated on all these leaves. For me it was something new, trying to add orange and even magenta, then to flow these colors into green, so I was concentrated on this part. When I actually realized that, well, you also have to color the animal, I was shocked, because of course I hadn't have any idea how to do it. But in the end it worked relatively well. I do love how I did the impression that the body, sorry guys, I don't know how to call it, I forgot. So we will call it animal. I hope that it's okay. So I tried to show that the back is highlighted by the sunshine, and on the backs I tried to do more intense shadow, and I already had nice thin brush, so I tried to add a little bit of texture where fur is slightly longer here, also on the head. Again, sides are a little bit darker, but the biggest problem was the shadow here on the ground. I think that I redone it. I have redone it probably 4 or 3 times, so even such a thick paper, it was almost ruined. I don't know, it still looks not like shadow, but more like it's standing in the middle of the dirty spot, but at least I have very fun memories about doing this one. I remember this revelation. Okay, your leaves are good, but you still have to color the animal. And that's all I have in this book. And we are moving to my favorite, to Carnival Escape. The Carnival Escape has the most interesting designs. The first 2 books I appreciate because of the landscapes, but here we have bigger amount of people and they all are in very interesting costumes. The artist herself, Jade Guidon, she spent almost the whole her life moving to the Trinidad island, and you can imagine that it's very bright, very colorful, with long history and many interesting tradition, architectural elements which are also quite interesting and unique. So we can find all these elements in her books. And of course, book with Carnival also was very interesting and very unique. My first page, which I did here, no, it's not this one, was this page, which I actually again did for the coloring contest. Again, we need to color something connected to the dances, and I thought that maybe for Brazilian samba I can select this page. So I colored it. I was quite happy even how I did the skin tone with watercolor. I think that I didn't use pencils here at all. I used white gel pen, I used golden, something probably gold acrylic paint for some of the details on the upper page, but the main image I did with watercolor and I was happy. Then I posted it on Instagram and Jade Guidon was kind to comment on my picture, and she told me that the whole book was inspired by the costumes which participated in carnivals through many years. So each year they had carnival for the theme, and the most favorite artist was Peter Minshall. So if I look at the pictures on reference pictures on internet, on the works by Peter Minshall, it would be much easier to understand all those creatures, all those costumes which we have here. So they were based on historical costumes which participated in carnivals, and it really helped me. I looked at the colors, at beautiful examples of his works. All those costumes, they indeed were created and they participated in carnival. So after that moment, this very helpful hint, it was much easier for me to color in this book. I am absolutely proud of this one. I deliberately made background with stains. I wanted to create impression that maybe it's, that big strokes of brush with paint, or maybe it's paint was just thrown on the wall. So I deliberately made such transition between colors very rough. And I do love how I did the lady. Again, I don't think that I used pencils here. Everything was made with watercolor, which for me it was just a miracle how I managed to do her hair, how I managed to do flowers, all the gemstones. I was crazy proud when I finished it, and I still love this work. I think that maybe only her eyes I did with pencils. Yeah, just this area was made with pencils. It's definitely one of my best works, and I do love how I did her earrings. Next, I even finished a couple of spreads. Again, here I am absolutely unhappy how I did green parts. I don't know why I have such a problem with leaves. I tried to watch educational videos, but somehow when I try to mix my own colors and when I start to work on the plants with watercolor, they always look flat and not enough color accents. They always look very boring. Also, I am not sure that I did a decent work on the shadows. I tried to show shadows where leaves are hanging above the wall here, but still not enough. Maybe I had to select other color, maybe something more bluish for the shadow. Anyway, at least for the ladies here, I am again quite proud because to color portraits with watercolor, it was crazy in the beginning, but now I do love them. Of course, they are far from perfect, but at my level of knowledge of watercolor, for me, they are really good. Here, I hope that you are able to see how bright are their clothes, and I enjoyed working with such beautiful bright colors. And ladies are very lovely. Another spread which I did here, I used a mix of Inktense pencils, which of course also are very good on these watercolor pencils, and regular watercolors. Inktense went here to the main procession on the carnival. I think that here we have carnival dedicated to the some goddesses and gods. And to make the background less intense, I used here regular watercolors diluted with a lot of water just to get very pastel light colors. I don't know, maybe these green leaves didn't match the whole spirit of the page, but at least the main characters, I do love how I did them. Well, that was my story with the books of Jade Guidon. I hope that one day I will gather my courage and I will start to work in this book. Of course, I will be working in Carnival and Thailand more because for me they are easier to understand, easier to practice in, but the Island Escape also is very interesting. Another book in totally different style, but again where you can easily use watercolor is this book by Ravine Fillin. It's an amazing book, and it's one of my biggest shames that in such of amazing book with such amazing designs printed in such good quality, and you know that I adore to color dragons. I did just one page. I have totally no explanation, and that's my promise for myself. Somehow to rectify this situation and to color much more pictures during the next year. I do love Ravine Fillin style. They are very interesting to look at, many details, many fantasy designs. And as I said, I do love dragons, but somehow I even selected pictures which I wanted to do. You can see that I have some bookmarks. But actually my one and only colored page is this dragon with sapphires. It's called My Pretty Blues. So he is guarding blue gemstones, and I decided to use similar blue color for the central part of the body together with gold, of course. I was pretty crazy here to work on the background. I mixed it again regular matte watercolor with pearl, and here they help to create quite interesting background. It's very shiny when you look at it. So I enjoyed it, and it was easy coloring. I don't know why I hadn't returned to it. I will try to correct this mistake, and this book deserves to be colored. Next book where you definitely can use a watercolor is this book by Natalie Van Moer. It's Enchanted Seasons. Please forgive me if I won't be calling her with the printed name. For me it's Enchanted Seasons. I got it relatively recently, so I managed to do only 2 pages here, but I do love both of them. Here I did a watercolor background. Of course, I did it during the fall season, so that's why I had this color palette. I was attracted by these beautiful flowers with the gemstones in the middle, and of course I really liked this bow with the bug in the middle. It's a little bit similar to the designs of Hannah Carson, and paper here is very thick and really good for all pencils and water-based media. So I played here with various pencils to test them. And in the end I even used budget pencils like Color here on the center. I used Derwent Drawing, I used Monarch pencils. In the end I decided that mostly I will try to color with watercolor, and then on the details in this book I will work with various pencils. I am proud how I did this silk bow. At least I think that it's silk. It's again made with watercolors, but still I managed to show nice shadows between layers, between various folds on the ribbon. Again, I was proud of myself. And on top of it, this golden beetle, which I did with pencils. It works really well, so I am happy with this one. The bird, not so happy. Maybe I had to select totally different colors. I think that with cool grey feathers it would be much nicer, but I don't know. I can't explain why I decided to use this color palette, but at least the left side is really good. Another page which I started before Halloween time, then I did only the background. For the background I used Neocolor crayons, again just for the paper test. I did background, it wasn't bad. It has unusual for me color from reddish and even orange brown to the very dark brown on the lower page. I thought that okay, I will do it for Halloween. Then I forgot about it and I started to finish it already after Halloween. So I was divided between the ideas still to do the Halloween pictures, because it still has some pumpkins and I had this appropriate color for the background, and some of the elements already hinted for Christmas, at least the bird and berries here, so I wasn't sure what to do. In the end I did something between. The victim of such thoughts was this bird, which I tried to convert into cardinal but without much success. But still there I have many details which I love. I did the whole a mess of the pine trees with watercolors only, and I managed to do them less flat. At least there is nice difference between tips of the branches and inner part near the tree trunk, where I put much more stronger shadows. I did walls of the building with watercolor, and I even add some texture like bricks. On the clocks I worked with pencils. Then I was a little bit crazy with all my golden things, golden Posca on the pine cones and golden watercolor here. So in the end I do love it, and I plan to color much more in this book. Very nice, and I really appreciate paper here. Another book with really great paper, but you can compare the size of them. This one is The Tiny Little Gem, which I also got recently. It's by Gracia Salvo, her recent book, and it's based on her paintings which she did during Inktober. I think that I will adjust my camera here. When I tested paper here, I managed to do 3 tiny pictures, but of course I have future plans. I even have a bookmark what I want to color next. So here I did this tiny portrait of the main hero, girl named Emma. I think that her skin I did with pencils and everything else with watercolor. Paper is absolutely great for water-based media. Next, let me show you Emma the Skater, because it's also done with watercolor. You know that I love figure skating, so when I saw that slippery tag was um, here shown as a slippery surface of the ice, of course I wanted to do a figure skater. Again, I mostly used here watercolors. I don't think that it would be possible to catch on the video, but even for the ice I used different shades. It's more greenish blue and more bluish green, so at least couple of shades of watercolor to create more interesting look of it. I deliberately tried to be a little bit uncareful when I did colors on her dress. I wanted to have such a rough flow from the magenta to purple violet colors to make look more interesting. Here I think that I only did her hair with pencils and the rest with watercolor. And finally I have here a page which I started to do with Neocolor crayons. I wanted to do a very intense, spectacular space background, and Neocolor crayons really worked well here. First I used one watercolor pencil from my Kohinoor Mondeluz set because I needed this very intense bright blue to create light halo around the ears, and the rest I did with Neocolors. They created this very intense, beautiful matte surface. Then on top I added a lot of shiny sprinkles with golden, pearl blue watercolors, so it looks, here I also have pearl purple. And then with pencils I finished to color it, adding also golden details here for the flame from the rocket. Nice book with many nice and quick projects to do, so I definitely hope that I will color in it more. Thank you for watching this video. Remember that you can use watercolors in many books, but these books and some other books like Search for the Light Bulb Burglar, they have thicker paper which allows you to work a little bit more slowly, to think about blending colors, about adding colors, about doing lesser layering of colors. So you don't have to think about bleeding. In many other books you also can use watercolors, but you will have to work with lesser amount of color with water, so you have to just be a little bit more careful. Some people, they are still surprised when I show my works in Hannah Carson books, and they surprised that actually paper can take water. And I always repeat that in all my books by Hannah Carson, both English and Swedish editions and of course Dutch edition, they all are capable to take watercolor with moderate amount of water, but still don't be afraid to experiment. And if you're really interested in working with watercolors only, maybe you can think about Jade Guidon books. Thank you, and until the next episode.